Hello, and welcome to this new update video for Tides of Revival, which is actually the new game, which I'll come to that in a bit. So this is a pretty big video, actually. Lots of nice, cool announcements. This is for the game that used to be called the Elven Growing Legacy, but we have now switched names. But more important than that, I think, is the fact that it's not just me anymore who's working on the game, but it's actually, it's 3 people in various shapes and sizes and capabilities, I guess you could say. So we have Giuseppe, who is up here, and we have his wife Giulia, who is not with us today. And down here is my friend from way back, Alexander. So I thought I'd just start with introducing like how it came to be that you joined from my point of view. So from my perspective, like my idea from I think the very beginning has been like this needs to be like a team project, and I want this to have lots of people eventually like interacting with it. But I was sure that it would take me years, at least like 2 years, before I would get anyone who wanted to like comment, do things with me on a regular basis, because I think I really needed to prove myself. But sort of on a whim, I recorded this update video for 2022 in the beginning of January this year, and I put it up, and just a couple of days later, I think, you contacted me, Giuseppe, and you said, "Hi, can I help?" basically, which was really nice, and I made me really happy. So do you want to tell me a little bit about why you've hopped on?
Yeah, absolutely. I was always interested in the rendering side of things for the game, and I had been following the Elven Growing Legacy both on YouTube and on Twitter, and that was for me again the perfect opportunity to jump on a project and be able to do what I always wanted to do, to build a renderer from scratch. And Fate wanted that the game you were building was also written in Zig, which was the language that I was using in all my renderers. So I decided to jump on and join the team.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not much of a render programmer, but I managed to sort of make do with the samples from
Absolutely.
the sort of frameworks that I've used. And one of my hopes has been like that eventually, because I look at Twitter and I see a lot of cool posts from people who do awesome like shaders and tech demos and stuff, and somehow or somewhere I was thinking that, well, I'm sure there's like one of these people who want to do like these cool stuff, like open source work or whatever, but on like an actual game and not just like a tech demo. So that was like my something that I was hoping for, and here you are, so that's great.
And it actually was the last straw, basically, when you said that you see this project as something that you want to carry on working for a long time, and that gives me the motivation to keep working on the graphic side of things instead of just doing a tech demo and just leaving it for months. Working on a real game.
And then there's your wife, who's started to make some art for us.
Funny fact was that when we were discussing about what the game art should look like, you sent me some references, and one of them was actually a tweet from Giulia, my wife, and back then you didn't know that she was my wife. So, and then she's still in a learning phase, right? She's learning 3D environment art. And then when I told her about this, she was so happy that she decided to join the team as well.
Let's see, it was this one, I think. I have it up here on screen.
Okay,
so that's great, because we definitely need art in the game, right? So
absolutely.
You're not gonna get that far with just cylinders and basic shapes. So and Alexander, I've actually talked with Alexander about the game for I guess the whole development period on and off, but it's not really been it's been like some chats here and there, and I mean we're all just in it for like the whatever time we can afford to put into it, right? Like I told you, the first thing I said to you, Giuseppe, was when you came on, is like, okay, I'm gonna try to scare you away, and basically say like, okay, these are like some of the things which might make you not want to join the project, just so that if you joined, I knew that you would you wouldn't have feel like lied to or anything like that, and yeah, so one of those things was I only work on the game for like anything from like 1 hour per week to 10 hours per week, and it can or even some weeks I don't work on it, so it's sometimes you just can't do, and that's like totally fine, and it's like just 1 hour per week, that's still very that's nice, but I don't have any expectations. So Alexander, what are your thoughts on like on helping out with the game?
Yeah, I mean, we've been discussing games and gaming and pretty much everything for a very long time.
Yeah. I've known Alexander since my teens or his teens, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's close to 25 years.
Yeah, and we've made a number of board games together and one or two on computer. So yeah.
Yeah, we have at least started on some computer game projects, and we regularly talk about. I mean, ask each other for help with stuff, because you're a far better programmer than I am, but I know a bit more math than you do.
Yep.
So, so yeah, it was just natural to kind of discuss this project as well, and I don't have all that much time to put into programming, and I'm not sure I could do all that much anyway. But with the lore, I can kind of keep it in the back of my head at all times, and it's fun to think about. So
yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the name of the game and what you've been thinking about, or what we have been thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, we have this central theme of kind of renewal and collapse of civilization, and we would like to tie it to some kind of moon or something like that. So it was natural to go to tides as a word to use. We were playing around with lots of words like tides and cycles and what have you, and then we were playing around with what words we could combine it with, and we found a couple, and then we had, I think you did a little poll online, and some of the words were a bit strange and had some they would have been perfect words if people had known what they meant.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, revival, everyone knows what that means. So, Tides of Revival, we kind of ended up there because it felt like the best.
Yeah, I think like finding a name is always very hard, and the reason for picking a name is sometimes not as easy as you might think. So I have the poll that I posted up here now, and here I didn't even have revival because like it hadn't like I don't think it was.
It was not among our top choices at that point.
But so, for example, Tides of let's see if I can pronounce it. Renaissance, I think.
Yeah.
Which I really liked that to begin with, but then I was like, well, actually, it's a little bit hard to pronounce, especially if you don't know how to pronounce it, which probably very few people do. And the area, even a lot of people don't know what it means either. So then, like every time you mention it, you have to like mention the name, you have to explain what it means and so on. And that kind of turned me off a little bit.
Plus someone said it would. They would think you had just misspelled Renaissance.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's a good point.
Yeah, and like Tides of Renewal, I quite like as well. But I did feel like it's a little like renewal as a word isn't like super nice to say because it just sounds like a bunch of vowels clumped together.
Yeah, sure.
So that
I actually think revival is better because you kind of revive civilization, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we ended up with.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice name. Like you said, we looked at different sort of synonyms for tides, like cycles and so on. But I feel like all of them were like tides were the only one that really felt sort of like not like a technical term. It felt more like something that could be used for like a fantasy game, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I quite liked it.
Yeah, since we've been discussing so much about, I mean, you have been mentioning that you wanted this to be coupled to a moon of some kind, and we've been discussing kind of astronomical features that could influence this, and then tides is just the right word to use, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, all of this is kind of like it's still so early that it's a little bit up in the air, but I'm quite certain that like at the very at the core, what we want is like that the civilization go up and down in tides. Tides. It goes from basically everything is in ruins and shatters to rising up against to prominence and to prosperity and like cool, nice cities and all that, and then it goes down again. It's like a cycle that goes, and that this cycle is, we've talked about it, probably like a millennia or maybe 5 centuries or something in that area, and then it's just an idea that I have, and I think this is maybe less set in stone. It's like the moon idea that I have was like a huge moon on the sky, because I think that would just be cool, and it having some sort of effect, but it could be something different as well. But I think it could tie quite well into the mechanics of the game.
Yep.
So we'll see. All right. Maybe we can. Maybe you can quickly mention your board game as well that you put together.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about what kind of cultural effect this kind of cycle would have on people and in such a world, and if it was possible to design kind of a game that they would play in the world that kind of embodied this cycle. So I've actually designed at least the basis for a board game. There's lots of tweaks and so on to do it, but I have the basis for a board game that actually could be played fairly simply in a world like this, and with some tweaks could even kind of sum up philosophies of different peoples in different parts of the world, which is really cool. I think I can do quite a lot of cool stuff with this. So that's fun. But I need to make it a proper and fun board game first, so then we can do fun stuff with it.
I think I hadn't expected that, but of course.
No, of course. But I was thinking about that would be some kind of since this cycle or tides are very central to the world. I was just thinking about what kind of effect that would have and what kind of cultural things that would remain through a collapse. And a board game, very simple board game that can be played with very simple stuff. Like this can be played with basically stones and a flat piece of earth.
Yeah.
So that could survive a collapse, right? And I think that kind of things are fun to do. And I had some time when I was driving to work and so on to think about it. So yep.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Okay, and in regards to like design and lore, let me show you as well. We've started to put together. We're using Obsidian for now, at least, as like a document writing tool. So we're gonna check that out a little bit and see if it works well for us. It's kind of neat that it has this sort of graph and you can follow things around. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so next up on the agenda that we have is the new terrain, which is super cool. And I'm gonna let Giuseppe speak mostly about this, but I just wanted to mention that we've done one of the really important parts that I wanted to get done, that I mentioned in the, or we've started on it at least, that I mentioned in the 2022 update video, and that is that the terrain that we now see in the game is actually generated offline. It's not generated in runtime, which is good, because that means we can start to generate things like the cities offline as well, because right now the cities are generated in runtime, and that's why they aren't really matching the terrain at the moment. And we are then, like, now that we have that, we can actually do things like, you know, generate roads and things that wouldn't really be, that I haven't really wanted to start until we made this switch. So I'm really happy about that. We are also now generating the materials for the terrain offline as well. So we're generating splat maps for that. So Giuseppe, tell me about this new cool terrain.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get started with the terrain, actually, we had to do a bunch of foundational work. And one of the first tasks I worked on was to port the game to actually DirectX 12. Prior, I believe the game was built on web GPU. And we decided to do that based on the ambitions, right, of the game. We wanted to render a very, very large open world. And with DirectX, we had more control over, especially over resource management, memory management, and that's why we decided to go that route. Soon after that, we implemented GPU instancing to render all the trees and other stuff in the game, and these were all building blocks to get to the terrain, which is rendered with a technique that we took from Far Cry 5. They actually have a really nice and detailed GDC talk where they discussed how they build their own terrain to render a big, I think it's 20 kilometer by 20 kilometer world, and it's built on a quad tree. So they have their LOD system is based on a quad tree, and that's what we also did. So we built some LODs, some meshes LODs for the terrain, and then we have a system that, depending on how far away you are from certain tiles, it loads higher or lower LODs. And yeah, to make all of that work, we implemented some mesh loading that wasn't there yet, and similarly some texture loading. And so this way we were able to load both the height maps to modify the terrain on the GPU, some splat maps to place different materials right on different parts of the terrain, and finally the actual textures that you see on screen now. Those are other textures that we load and we place at the right point based on the splat maps. And there are some things missing. This is just the first pass that we did on the terrain. Probably you can see there are some seams still. There's stitching to be done between the different LODs. And there's better material support and definitely texture streaming. That will happen at some point in the near future, I hope. And I believe that's it. That's all I've worked on so far on the terrain.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to getting more actual meshes into the game, but we'll mention that later.
Yeah.
And also it's super nice that, you know, with my old terrain, it was much slower to load, and the patches would take much longer to load. Now it's you know, much faster, and the frame rate is much better as well. So
yeah. We should also mention that at the moment, I believe we are rendering 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers of worth of terrain.
Previously, it used to be like maybe at the best case up to 2 by 2 kilometers, or 1.5 or 1.5.
True.
So it's really nice. And yeah, so Giulia is coming in as a sort of a junior artist, learning stuff, but that's super nice because she's been creating some assets that we haven't had time yet to put into the game, but that's coming. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and I'll show you the images here on the video while you're talking.
Absolutely. So I think we decided to start working on the trees of the game because that's the mesh that you would see all over the place. And trees are quite complicated, so we decided to try and procedurally generate them as well. We tried both Blender and Houdini, but in the end we decided to go with Houdini because of the amazing set of tools that it provides. And I believe you can see now on screen a first version of let's call it a pine tree. At the moment you can only see it in vertex colors, and that's what we're gonna load into the game next. And the other asset that Giulia's worked on is a set of modular blocks to build houses, all the houses in the village that you, I believe, see in the game now, like blocks. And we were gonna build them modularly. So she's built all of this in Blender, and she's prepared also some presets that we would put later into the game.
And this is like a complete building that she's made from just putting those presets together, and it looks really nice.
Exactly. It does.
Compared to my orange containers that's in the game right now. It's
but they had that vision already.
It's a little bit of a step up. Okay, so now we're sort of moving on from things about the game specifically. Actually, I'll quickly mention I have implemented Gamepad support, so that's how I'm flying around in the world. And it's not really needed for gameplay at the moment, but it's nice to have a little bit of a smoother free fly camera. So I went ahead and did that. Okay, so one other thing that I'm quite excited about is that I have so I've looked at some other newsletters that are available, and I thought, you know, those are pretty good, but there isn't one for the type of game that I'm making, where there are like bits and pieces that I can use. So I had the idea of maybe I should just start a newsletter of my own. And another reason for that is that I have been collecting new like resources and inspiration stuff in like a document of my own for, you know, like a year now or something, and I like having a newsletter is just a way to make that public so that it doesn't, you know, fall away, and also I can share it with people, and I figure other people may have resources as well that they can just send me, and then I get them, you know, I don't have to find them, I can just maybe someone can send them. So I have created a newsletter that is live now. The URL isn't super nice, but it's okay. I'll post it somewhere. And what it basically is, it's just a list of various resources for making open world games. So I start out with listing other open world games. Most of them, or almost maybe all of them, are sort of indie games, even though, you know, of course there are bigger open world games too. And I'm sure I've missed some, but I wanted to like maybe show some that people hadn't seen before, and like give them some spotlight. Some of my fellow open world indie devs. And then I have a small list of what I call cool nuggets, which is just like here's like just a Minecraft map that looks kind of nice that someone had made, or you know, cool Twitter posts of fun things basically that I feel is relevant to making open world games. Then there are a bunch of videos on different topics. I do want to keep this. The newsletter isn't just for like programmers or for like render programmers, or you know, it's not for like a random not random. It's not for a specific like subset of the open world, like game developers making open world games. It's meant for everyone, because I'm interested in basically everything under that umbrella. So this is for, you know, everyone. So if you look at this and you're like, well, he doesn't cover this, and I know a lot of resources on this, then, you know, send them to me, and hopefully they'll be put on the next issue on the newsletter. Articles. Here are some just codes, like GitHub repos or assets, tools that I think is interesting. A lot of these are things that we have actually used, or that I have been inspired by in making this game. So it's not just like random things that I found. Maybe some of them. And then just some bonus stuff that I liked, even though they may not fall exactly under this umbrella. Yeah, so I'm really happy about this. It's a fun thing, and sort of in conjunction with that, and in conjunction with the team and the newsletter and all that, we have a Discord server that is brand new. It's like a week old or just a few days old. That is, it's both currently for like the development of the game and for open world game development. So if you're interested in that, you can join in and talk to us, or post resources or whatever. And one thing that's related to how we develop the game is we now have so we have a GitHub repo for the code, but I didn't want to put the assets into Git, because, you know, it just grows too much and it becomes unwieldy, and Git isn't a good fit for binary content. So I just didn't want Git at all, and I think the only reasonable option is SVN, basically, because that's, you know, Plastic isn't free, Perforce isn't free, you know. So SVN is a pretty good fit for textures and all sorts of content, you know. So I spent some time setting up that. It was more complicated than I hoped. I had to call my ISP 2 times to get it to work. But now we actually have both code and content checked in, so that's a really important step for the project to go forward. Let's see. And then I wanted to make a special call out to the people that we actually sort of depend on for making this game. And I think primarily it's Michal, who's doing the zig-gamedev repository, which has a lot of game development related libraries, and we use maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, and they are all like super high quality and very well made. And Michal is a really nice person as well. So really happy to work with this. And we have also been contributing some things back to this, primarily Giuseppe, but hopefully more things will come. And the second is Sander Mertens, however you pronounce that, who is making this repo called this library called flecs, which we are using as the you know, core architecture for entity management, basically. And it's really, like, so far I'm really happy with it. It's working really well, and it's nice to have something that you think will scale, because I have wild ambitions for this game, and I want something that will scale with performance, and I think flecs will do that for us. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah, that was one of the things that I told Giuseppe at the start, was like, you know, I don't have there's no scope for this game. It's unscoped. And usually that's a bad thing for a game, right? You don't want to work on not having a scope for a game is really bad, but the good thing is that we don't have like a commercial aim for this game. I mean, at least not yet, but you know, so, and that basically means that we're free to do whatever we want, and we don't like we don't have to say like, okay, well, we need to be done in 2 years, so we need to scope it down to be like this thing. We can just be like, well, in 20 years it's going to be like this, whatever, you know. And it's quite free, you know. We can do whatever we want with the game, not really have to care about a bunch of things that we would otherwise. Maybe I should also just call out Zig in general, and I guess Andrew Kelly for making Zig. I really like Zig. It's a really nice language to work in. Honestly, I'm not sure I would be doing the game if I were doing it in C++.
I probably wouldn't have sent you a message.
So okay, I guess we're at the what's next part. So right now we're basically taking one step backwards, because as you can see in the game, you know, you have cities flying up in the sky, and I'm not even sure you can walk around anymore.
Trees are gone.
Yeah, the trees are gone. So there's a lot of stuff like that's not there, that was in the game like maybe a month ago. So the goal right now is just, for me specifically, I think, is to get back to having, you know, exactly what we had, just so that we have, you know, taken the step forward, that we have taken the step back, but it also feels like now that we've have this new terrain and the offline generation, and what I'm currently working on is a system for loading these terrain patches and all kinds of data-based patches for the game. I think once we have that, that's going to open up like a whole world for us to make cool things from. So that's what I'm going to be working on. Giuseppe, what are your goals?
Yeah, my goals right now is to be able to load all the assets that Giulia has made. So replacing our temporary assets with meshes, since we had to implement mesh loading for the terrain. And after that, I want to work on a proper HDR rendering pipeline, adding support for PBR and having a basic deferred renderer that we can use to build a world.
Nice. Alexander, do you have anything that you're thinking of for the game at the moment?
Well, the board game is one thing, but I don't have anything specific. It's more like thinking about kind of what will the kind of the lore and the culture in the game, options for what can we do with different parts of the world given the lore and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very, very loose thoughts for now, but it's kind of this kind of thing needs to be in the back of the head for a while to kind of build up.
Yeah, and there's no real, like, it's not really something that we need urgently either, because it's like,
no, exactly.
We need you know, we kind of need the game for it to, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just thinking that when I come up with something cool, I will just put it in Obsidian to
yeah, that's perfect.
Expand the lore a bit where I can.
And I guess I should say that, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would like you know, I do see this as a team effort. So if any of you watching this would be interested in joining, you can talk to me and we will see. I'm quite keen on having a diverse team. I think that's important. So yeah, that's something that I'm aiming for, at least. But I think that's basically all that we wanted to cover, and it was quite a lot more than I had originally thought, but that's good, I think. So yeah, I think maybe we're done.
Yep, think so.
Yep.
Cool. Nice.
Oh, one extra thing.
Yeah.
How often do we plan to do this kind of update? Do we have any plan for that?
Before times, before you guys joined, I would just do a video whenever I had done something cool in the game. And maybe we can still do that, or maybe we can do this like once per month or something. I do think it'll be. I don't think it'll be like a set schedule.
No.
But I think maybe roughly once per month. But the next time will definitely be much shorter, I think. There's just a lot of stuff to talk about this time. But will sort of adjust it to be like, okay, now we have something cool to show, basically.
Yep.
And then we can do a video. And oh yeah, so on that topic, so the newsletter, I'm aiming for that to come out once per month, roughly. And an idea that I have, I'm not sure exactly when I'll get started on that, but it is to have the newsletter and like a video YouTube series together, both on the open world game dev sort of theme and the YouTube series. What I'd like to do is to have like guests come on, basically from like who do open world games, basically, and just talk to them about various things. And it could be anything from someone who's implemented a cool rendering thing, or someone who's done like game design for a game, like an open world game, a writer or artist. World building is super interesting to me, because I'm not that experienced with it, but I think it's really interesting. So that would be interesting as well. So having a video like that come out once per month, sort of like a podcast type of thing, I guess, that would be cool, I think. So we'll see if I can manage to do that as well. All right, should we say goodbye?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.